Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Friday afternoon edition. Friends at Bet365. You know what Bet365? It's never ordinary, and you too can sign up for Bet365 with the promo code PHLY365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We are pleased to be joined today, not only by the handsome Eagles insider himself, Zach Berman, but by the professor back from his gallivanting across the globe. What a summer it must have been. Deniz, how are you? Good to see you.
Great to see you guys. How are you?
We are very well. I want to get into.
I just want to make clear that Wi-Fi lag that was on Bo's end. That wasn't on my end, correct, Professor Selman? I see the chat weighing in.
I'm so used to seeing that diagonal door behind Bo and having a Wi-Fi lag are so such a experience where it, the two of them just go together that I don't even notice it anymore. But yes, there was a lag.
Yeah, so now he's.
But I've heard it's the mic. I've heard it's the mic, not the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I figured you wanted to take it from here, Zach. I figured.
Okay.
Go
on, Bo. So it's your show.
No, I mean, go ahead. What do you want? What do you want to talk about?
You were setting up Professor Selman.
Yeah, I want to hear at some point about where you have been, what the highlights were, and all that stuff. But maybe we'll do what Zach wants and save that for the end. We'll get to some Eagle stuff as well. But in conjunction with that, explain to the listeners the way that you have gone about your consumption of Eagles news, Eagles content while you have been away and as you have come back.
Yeah, so first of all, it's great to be back and great to see you guys virtually. Looking forward to seeing you in person soon. We went on a big, long summer trip, as we do every year. We're very lucky. Both Emily and I have academic calendar-based jobs, and so once our son Ren is off from school, we're all kind of free to travel. So we go to Turkey for most of the summer. That's where I'm from, as most of you know. And so visiting my family there. We were there for about 7 weeks total, going to different places, the beach in Istanbul and a couple of other places. And then our yearly adventure trip this year was to Thailand. We went to Thailand for 3 weeks with my cousin Daphne, famous from the Dead Poets Society reading from when she was in elementary school. She still defends the Turkish translation, by the way. Says it was worthwhile. And so we went to Thailand with her. Went to the north for a week, the south for a week, and then Bangkok for a week, and it was awesome. It was just great. We had a great time. Great food, decent weather, very cheap, enjoyable, and we did a good job of avoiding tourists, which is kind of my main thing that I try to do. So we didn't go to Phuket or Phi or any of those places that everybody goes. And then on the way back, we did a 1.5 week layover in Norway, which was awesome as well. Just incredible sights.
The classic Thailand to Norway dual trip. Everybody.
Yeah. Evren was very into how he went from the furthest south he had ever been to the furthest north he had ever been in in a 1.5 weeks.
Nice.
And the weather in Norway was beautiful. It was low 60s and cloudy the whole time, which is perfect weather as far as I'm concerned. And we did some hikes and things like that, and it was just beautiful. So yeah.
But from a content consumption
throughout the year.
From a content
Sorry. Content consumption when I'm in Turkey is pretty easy. I have a decent amount of time to listen to you guys and follow Eagles pressers and things like that. But in Thailand and Norway, it was tough. I mean, it was long days and tired, etc. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll come home and watch the Kellen Moore presser or whatever, but then I just fall asleep. Right? So I slowly fell behind. I was behind, falling further behind. And when I got back to Philly on August 24th, I realized that in my Eagles content calendar, it was still August 6th or so, including I hadn't watched the preseason games, I hadn't, just way behind. And so, me, I have to do things chronologically. I can't just jump ahead and whatever. So I went through chronologically listening to you guys mostly on like 1.8, 1.9 speed to catch up, watching the condensed versions of the preseason games, pre-game pressers, post-game pressers, all that. And I crammed about 5 days into one, about 4 days in a row. And that way I was able to catch up. I learned about Fran joining the show about 5 days after it happened. In fact, Bo, when we were texting last week and you asked me to come on next Thursday with Fran, I just assumed Fran was just a guest on the show. Like, I didn't even know at the time that Fran had joined the show. So I learned that by watching the Ospreys.
Did you watch the Ospreys on double speed?
Ospreys I slowed down to, I think, 1.5. So it was a little bit, a little bit more. And then I texted Fran, and I had to apologize for being so late in congratulating him. But I explained why. So, yeah. This is par for the course for me, by the way. I did mandatory Turkish military service in 2009. And when I came back, I had missed 2 Eagles games and 2 rounds of Phillies playoffs. And I went through all of it chronologically without spoilers. Like, I had no idea the Phillies had won the division series or the championship series when I came back. And I was able to, like, slowly discover all that in real time. So yeah, this is, I have practice on this.
If I had a penny for every Eagles fan who told me they missed a game because of Turkish military service, I'd probably have a penny, to be honest with you.
I could make you a little richer by introducing you to some others, Zach, if you want.
Fair enough. Well, I'm thrilled that you're back stateside, and I'm excited for your insight this year. I do have a lot of questions about what you thought of the summer content and of the summer narrative. But before we get into that, can I just mention a few pieces of Eagles news at the top?
Please go ahead.
And then, because there's a lot I want to pick up or pick Professor Selman's mind on, but let's just get the news out of the way. And that is, since we last spoke, the Eagles made a move. They claimed Byron Young, the defensive tackle, 3rd-round pick a year ago by the Las Vegas Raiders,
but not the good defensive tackle Byron Young, the other defensive tackle Byron Young.
Well, he is good. I mean, there might be a better one.
Yeah,
but
not the best. Byron Young,
best Byron Young
tackle in the NFL, but the second best.
Byron Young, the Tennessee Byron Young, the Alabama Byron Young. I think he played 6 games last year. Waived. The Eagles claimed him off waivers. They released Marlon Tuipulotu. Now, if you
hold on, stop the presses. Yes. The Eagles continue to say that they released Marlon Tuipulotu. This is driving me insane. He's on a rookie contract. He has to be waived. Is this some kind of deep state attempt of that? They're trying to fool the rest of the NFL. They won't put in a waiver claim if we just pretend and say through our official communications that he's released and not waived. Are they trying to pull one over on the rest of the league, Zach?
No, I just think that they used the wrong verb, honestly. But they waived him. He's a 4th-year player, so he goes on the waivers. And for those who watched the show on Tuesday, we kind of discussed how the Eagles might look to upgrade backup nose tackle. I don't think Byron Young fits as the backup nose tackle, but I think he does offer you more upside on the defensive line. He played in odd man fronts when he was at Alabama. This is a player who was drafted into a different defensive score, a different head coach, a different GM than what the Raiders have, than who the Raiders have now. So we'll see if it amounts to anything. But this was obviously a priority waiver for the Eagles because they made this move once he became available.
Yeah, I think the writing was on the wall as we discussed for Marlon Tuipulotu, probably when Vic Fangio was asked about backup nose tackles, and he didn't mention Marlon Tuipulotu. Yep. Goes back to the Tyler Steen at the owners' meetings with Nick Sirianni. I think Tui has flashed at times over his career, but you and I agreed, and we did the discussion with Fran that he was 6th in that pecking order by the end of this summer. Thomas Booker had outpaced him.
But I'm still curious to see what happens if Jordan Davis were to go down, because now he mentioned Vic Fangio mentioned Milton Williams' name. I don't kind of view Milton Williams as
which was sort of news to Milton when he was then asked about it as a follow-up. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe they look at Moro Ojimo there. Ojimo. What's the Ross Tucker pronunciation?
I believe it's Ajama.
Ajama.
Who is doing all the banging?
I always said Ojimo. It's
Zach or Deniz? That's Deniz with the banging?
This is brutal. I live in Grad Hospital, and those of you familiar with the neighborhood know that every other house is being torn down this year, and so there's a lot of banging in the background. Sorry about that.
I don't know what Bo's facial expression meant there.
So no, came to mind, but I decided to let it slip this time.
You do have sophomore humor, that's for sure. So that's one piece of news there. The other piece of news, and this is one that's right up Professor Selman's alley, although everything's up Professor Selman's alley, but that is that the Eagles they announced their uniform combination for the season opener next week in Brazil, a week from today. And it's the first time we're ever seeing this uniform combination from the Eagles. Black helmet, white jersey with green letters on, or green numbers on it, I should say. People have pointed that out to me, and black pants. So there's no green base color on any part of this uniform. Bo documented when the Brazil game was announced and throughout the summer, the context behind green in Corinthians Arena. I also have seen the explanation that the Eagles are wearing this combination as in honor or an homage of the team that plays in Corinthians Arena, which wears white and black. So, but this is the first time the Eagles are pulling out the white jerseys, black pants, black helmet combination.
But the Packers are still wearing green, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So this is not just about maybe it's a little bit from the Eagles' perspective of not wearing green, but this whole don't wear green thing, I think, is a little bit overstated.
Yeah, maybe the Eagles.
Well, the Eagles are clearly playing into the Corinthians Palmeiras rivalry, right? So the Eagles, by going black helmet, white uniform, black pants, white socks, it looks like from the graphic, which they've never done with the black pants. I'm a big socks analytics guy.
I don't know anyone who cares
really
more about
looking
the
like
than you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone is keeping the same stats I am on the socks. But the Corinthians wear black and white, and they're really looking like, if you look at the field, it's going to look like a black and white team against a green team. So that's the big São Paolo rivalry, though. Corinthians fans have more to worry about than what the Eagles are wearing. Right now, they're in 18th place facing relegation. They're going to have to dig out. They're going to have to dig out of that. I think they have 14 games left. They've only been relegated once in their history. So they're probably more worried about that.
How's Flamenco doing?
I'm not sure, but I did check that. I did see that Palmeiras was third. So that in terms of the rivalry, the green team is doing a lot better.
Do you have other prepared jersey color thoughts, analytics here, Professor?
Yeah, just a little bit of history on this. When I was growing up, the Eagles routinely wore white at home. They routinely chose to wear white at home. That was a common thing, especially early in the season when it was hot. They stopped doing so, however, in 2015. The last time the Eagles had a choice of what to wear in a game and chose to wear white uniforms was week 2 of 2015 against Dallas, which was a loss. And they haven't done it since. So this is the first time since then. Obviously, it's for a special reason. It's not really a home game. But for those of you following such things, it's the first time in 9 years the Eagles are volunteering to wear white. And historically, the white on black combination, ignoring the helmet difference, the Eagles are 4-1 all time in that combination. The only loss was to the Jets last year.
To build upon what Professor Selman said there, the Eagles, I think the Eagles very much wanted the Packers wearing green for this, because the Eagles could have had the choice if they could have worn their black jerseys, black helmets, right? They could have gone with the black look. They chose to wear the white jerseys with the black helmets to put the Packers in green.
There you go. There is another bit of news, Zach, from the injury report. It's not an official injury report yet, but injury-wise, I told you I did not see Isaiah Rodgers on the sideline in that final preseason game. I was curious what was going on there. Was an IR, designation a possibility? They did not put him on IR, obviously, but he has not been practicing this week. So there is something going on with Isaiah Rodgers that we do not know about yet, huh?
No, and that was, as always, an astute observation. You at the game is something we'll continue to monitor here. The Eagles' first injury report will come out on Sunday this week. Okay, so typically it would be on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday. I believe it would be on Sunday this week if I'm pushing it up. Or no, it should be Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, actually Monday this week it would have to come out. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would be the injury reports, and then the game Friday.
And so if
I was going to ask you, Zach,
go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to ask, is the schedule pushed up? Is it the schedule a day earlier because of the long flight? Is everything happening a day before it normally would be?
Yeah, correct. The media schedule and the practice schedule is moved up. So the Eagles will practice Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then, interestingly, the day before the game, when they typically have a walkthrough Thursday, there's going to be a practice. There's going to be media availability. So you'll hear from Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, a few other players the day before the game, which is atypical, but they're kind of treating this almost like I don't even want to say like Super Bowl because they don't talk the day before the Super Bowl. This is like a big event game for the NFL, and so there's going to be massive availability. And the interesting thing for it, I don't know if it's going to be broadcasted live or on the team's website or whatnot, but they're going to have it's for a mass Brazilian audience as well, or a Brazilian media contingent. So there will be like a Portuguese translator up there. So, I mean, I'm fascinated to hear the standard is the standard in Portuguese.
There you go. If we presume, Zach, that Isaiah Rodgers does not play week 1, what is your guess on what the nickel defense? Reed, we got a Reed appearance. Looking good, buddy.
Sloan wants to say hi. Okay.
Oh, right, we don't get enough Sloan on the pod.
No, sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, if Isaiah Rodgers does not play, how do you think the Eagles line up in 11 personnel on defense? Nickel personnel.
Asking me, I think it's going to be Quinyon Mitchell on the outside with in base, and so then you said 11 personnel in the nickel. I would think Quinyon Mitchell goes out inside, Keely Ringo on the outside. It feels like you disagree with that based on some off-air conversations.
I think my guess for week 1 is that it would be Avonte Maddox in the slot and Quinyon Mitchell staying outside. That's just speculation. We saw like 3 snaps of that at the end of training camp. But it was a memory for me because Maddox had been working almost exclusively at safety except when they were in dime. And so when they did that with Quinyon on the outside, I think just predicting that Fangio would want somebody with a little bit more veteran experience on there as opposed to going Mitchell and Ringo. I think that would be my lean, but I don't feel super strongly about that.
I'm curious, Bo, do you think that that's more something about like how good Keely Ringo has looked in Fangio's eyes, or is it more about keeping Quinyon Mitchell in one place the whole game and then also the veteran thing you said?
I think a little bit more the latter, that I think it's in service of what's best for the best player that they have of whatever the 3 options are, and that's Quinyon Mitchell for his first game, not asking him to bounce back and forth inside because if there is no Isaiah Rodgers, you're going to need him on the outside. That would just be my guess, but I mean Fangio has not shied away from giving Quinyon Mitchell a lot of responsibility this early, so it's certainly possible. I mean that's where he spent most of camp practicing.
Right.
So.
And then Fran's going to give us real good breakdowns next week on the Packers. But I'm curious too if the Packers depth chart or the Packers personnel factors into that, right? I don't know if it'll be Jaden Reed inside, but if the Eagles want a particular matchup based on the Packers personnel.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Vic Fangio is going to have to pick somebody for who's going to play inside, but you can also do your own picking if you're on Game Time, because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. There's the super deal. That's what you're looking for, that super designation. And that means that you're getting this great little delta between how much the ticket's worth and how much it's being sold for. That's what Game Time can help you prioritize the best deals. And I know that Zach is a man who is always looking for the best deal. Game Time Picks. The curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. There's the all-in pricing where you toggle to see how much it's going to cost. No hidden fees. I hate the hidden fees. You get the all-in price right up front. You also get to see what the seat looks like ahead of time. You also have the lowest price guarantee and the Game Time ticket coverage where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. I keep saying you also have because you get so much when you're using Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
A lot's changed over the years. One thing that has not is the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that's not is that it's less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Miller Lite has sparked this debate in 1975. We still have not settled it. With Miller Lite, you can keep it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. A light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, and only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and it's less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY Birds. Or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company. I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces, fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer. And if there's anything that I can just emphasize from that ad read, it's please, please, please celebrate responsibly.
There you go. Professor, from your, shoving down the gullet of all of that Eagles content, what were the big takeaways that you had? What do you have takes on that you'd like to unload?
Well, I thought it was outrageous that Dylan McMahon was cut. Was my main takeaway. I just couldn't believe that.
You had the right takeaway. Yeah.
I had to, I had to just keep refreshing to make sure I read it right.
That's exactly right.
No, it's funny. It's funny how like when you have a show every day or when you have pressers, like once every few days, like it's normal to talk about, Matt Hennessy is still on the third team, but when you hear it every 2 hours, like because of the way that I was going through it fast, it's extra funny, like because it obviously has no bearing on anything, but like it's like the thing you have to talk about in the off season. So that's always entertaining. I'm a little bit surprised at. Like I feel like and I don't consume. There's a lot of like stuff I don't consume. I consume, this podcast, a couple of other podcasts that I find are worthwhile, and that's it. So maybe people are talking about this on WIP or something. I don't know. But in general, I'm curious what you guys think about the fact that there are so many new players on the team this year, and so many new coaches, and just a very big picture question: is this roster as good as last year's roster? And when I ask that, and I'll give you a second to think about it. I just want to like back it up with like an objective number here. The number of new starters on the Eagles, like who weren't on the team at all last year, could be as high as 9 this year in week 1, maybe 8 since Isaiah Rodgers, I guess, is hurt. So Mekhi Becton, Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, Devin White, maybe Zach Bond, Quinion Mitchell, CJ Gardner-Johnson, whoever the third wide receiver is. It could be as high as 9 players who are in the first 22 who weren't on the team at all last season. How many such players were there in past seasons, would you say? Zach, do you want to guess 2023 of the 22 starters week 1, how many of them were new to the team?
I would say 4. Is that
Zach Cunningham and Justin Evans? 2.
That's it.
The year before there were only 4. AJ Brown, Hassan Reddick, Kaiser White, James Bradbury. 2021.
What about CJ Gardner-Johnson?
4 wins. Didn't start week 1. Now some of this stuff is like very specific to like who started week 1, but I had to do it some way. But so yeah, 2021. The team is coming off of 4 wins, has a brand new coaching staff. And the only 4 starters who weren't on the team the year before, Devonta Smith, and then 3 basically forgettable guys, and Eric Wilson, Steven Nelson, Anthony Harris. That was it. The other 18 guys had all been on the team. Now, they weren't all starters the year before, but they were all on the team the year before. So going back all the way to 2017, the biggest number was 5 in any season. And this year it's going to be at least 6, probably 8, maybe 9. So I guess the question I have is, first of all, like, what does it mean that this year that this number is so large? And more importantly, is this roster as good as last year's roster after all these changes?
I think my gut reaction is that this plays into why I think there is such a wide variance about this season. And I'm happy to get on board and say that the roster looks really good and the schedule is easy and they should win 11, 12 games. But like, there are so many moving parts, and it starts with the coordinators. Like, that is a total unknown. On paper, Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore are turnkey guys, but there's a lot of guesswork about that. And so, yeah, when you're inputting even more variables that we don't understand and how they're going to fit, like, Devin White on paper, wow, guy was a top 10 pick and he's played well in the NFL and he's an unbelievable athlete. Well, obviously there's a reason he was available, and he was benched by the team that drafted him, and one of the best defensive minds in football chose to bench him, right? So we can't rely on Devin White having a great season. And so to me, it also plays into this obsession that the Eagles have had this offseason with, former first-round picks, like Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
On paper, that sounds great. Of course, that's a better use of the 5th wide receiver than Quez Watkins or Johnny Wilson. But I don't know, maybe not. So yeah, I think I do think
Mekhi Becton, same thing.
Mekhi Becton, the exact same thing. So yeah, I am. It is on my radar that there are a lot of things about this team that look better on paper than they may turn out to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, like, I hear Sheil saying on almost every show that he's never been so unsure about, how a season would go, for example. And I usually think it's overstated how unknown a season is going in, like the way every election is the biggest election of our lives. Like, it's like every NFL season is the most unknown of our lives going in. And usually the reason is because what happened in the other seasons already. I feel like all these objective metrics of how many new players there are who we've never seen in an Eagles uniform, the coaches, and like you said, the variance of the individual players in terms of the gap between their floor and their ceiling, makes it all fascinating. Like, it actually is, like, objectively, I think, the most unknown Eagles team that we've seen recently. And it'll be the first time we've seen this many new players on the team to start a year, which isn't normally what you'd expect after 3 straight, making it to the playoffs 3 straight times and, starting 10-1 and, going to the Super Bowl the year before and all that. It's a little bit surprising to see this many changes. Obviously, some of them are forced with the retirements and whatnot, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I went on the record in May saying that I think this roster is worse than the year before. Mm. And I think I still think that. I mean, losing Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, and Hassan Reddick is not a small thing that you can just, it's like, okay, we got Mekhi Becton now, so the offensive line is okay. Like, no, it's not. Like just giving Jalen Carter more snaps isn't automatically going to make it not matter that the best defensive player on the team last year just isn't on the team this year. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Fletcher Cox played a crazy number of snaps last year. He played in the games he actually played. He played close to 60% of the snaps, more than 60% of the snaps. If you take out the 2 games he missed, Jalen Carter played fewer than 50% of the snaps, right? Like, Jordan Davis played 45%. Milton Williams played 42%.
Yeah, they're talking about Vic Fangio 70%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the starting 3 defensive tackles for Vic Fangio typically stay on the field. I mean, we're not expecting, too much of a rotation there. So are these guys who, I mean, other than Jalen Carter, the other 2 guys haven't shown that much when they play 40%. Are they suddenly going to be good playing 70% of the snaps? Not to mention, if there's an injury, the depth there is suspicious as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little worried about this. And then you lose your best edge rusher and replace him with a guy who's never started. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little worried about the fact that the downside.
This is not good news for Eagles fans. You're bringing them down. But I also think, in addition to that, now I'm sure that this is the case for some of those past seasons that it's not baked in. But like some of the people who are holdovers, like it's a brand new role. Specifically, I'm thinking about the Cam Jurgens, Jalen Hurts, pre-snap responsibility stuff. Like, yeah, those guys have been here, but that is not something that we have seen them do. We don't know how they're going to handle that, and so I think there are way more moving parts than we probably give credit to in terms of just thinking we can predict what's going to happen.
Yeah. So well, first off, I apologize for the internet here. I'm on Wi-Fi elsewhere. I'm at home. I'm hardwired here. I'm on Wi-Fi. I'm not home. I'm on Wi-Fi, and so I apologize if I was spotty there. But I did hear the conversation, and Professor Selman brings up good points, and I think they are better on defense personnel wise. I think there are fewer like C or D players, if you will, on defense than they had last year. And in particular, I look at safety. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson is an upgrade compared to what they had last year. I'm not telling you Devin White or Nakobe Dean or Zach Bond or Jeremiah Trotter Jr. are going to be like great, but I think that the linebacker play is going to improve. But overall, I think where the Eagles really need to kind of hope that this roster is better, because they did lose some really important players. And I think of the players you mentioned, Hassan Reddick is like a loss that cannot be. I think there's kind of a view from fans that, well, they replaced Hassan Reddick with Bryce Huff. Yeah, I would rather have Hassan Reddick than Bryce Huff, right? But when I look at this, I think what the Eagles can hope for is they're relying on fewer older players this year, and there's, in theory, more ascending players. Like Jalen Carter should be better this year than he was last year. Jordan Davis, in theory, should be better this year than he was last year. And I mean, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith were already like in the primes of their careers, right? But these are guys who like are not declining. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson should be better than they were last year. So when I look at this overall, Jalen Hurts in theory should be better than he was last year. So there are a lot of players that I think, even though they're returning starters, their level of play should be better this season than they were a year ago.
So the Eagles have released their captains, Zach. We have breaking news. The captains, Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, Brandon Graham, Jordan Mailata, Jake Elliott, AJ Brown, and Darius Slay. Now, funny, on the team release, they say everybody's full name, but only Slay. So he's now apparently, according to the team, in Madonna territory. But no Devonta Smith, who was the captain last year. Snubbed.
I mean, half the team was captains last year. So
yeah,
true. That's
it's fewer. It's fewer captains in total, right?
I think it is fewer. Last year they had 9. Yeah. Is that right? So this is so Mailata is a new captain, right?
Yep.
But Devonta has been dropped from the mantle.
Yeah, Devonta, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey are no longer captains. Was Brandon Graham a captain last year or not?
Oh, he might not have been. You're right. I think it might have been Fletch and not Brandon Graham. Yeah.
But yeah, so fewer captains than last year. The Devonta thing, that is interesting. That's a good observation.
I mean, I think of Devonta as more like, I mean, he's maybe not as loud and outspoken, but like, who else would you want to follow than Devonta?
Jeff McClain had an interview on his podcast earlier this summer with Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata spoke about how important it would be for him to be captain, or like how much that would mean to him. So I imagine this is particularly meaningful for Mailata.
So he campaigned for it.
Well, the question was Brandon Graham.
Brandon Graham was a captain last year, so
he was okay.
The captains are exactly the same as last year, with Jordan Mailata replacing Devonta Smith.
Right, and then they just took out the emeritus spots for Kelsey and Cox.
Interesting.
Wow, Smitty, that's tough. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be happy about that if I was him, right?
maybe from a fashion perspective, the seed wasn't working out for him, right? He had to declutter the wardrobe.
Jeez, I feel like that's tough.
Now, this is by team vote, right?
Well, this is one where it's by vote, but also the coach gets to like put a finger on the pulse. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So there was famously one year, it was 2020 when they did not have the team vote. Doug Peterson assigned captains that year, and I think it ruffled Zach Ertz's feathers. Right, Zach Ertz wanted to be a captain that year. There, he was going through like a contract thing. And it was the only year that Doug Peterson assigned captains as opposed to team voting for it.
Interesting.
Was Craig James one of the captains?
I remember I broke that story. Craig James was named a special teams captain going into the playoffs because Camus was hurt or something like that. They needed a new. I nailed that. One of the biggest scoops of my career.
Look at that. That's why you're you, man.
With the Isaiah Rodgers mystery injury being at the top of the list, and the Gottlieb Ayedje signing in the middle of camp being number 2.
Hey, in all earnestness, Bo broke the Joey and Lowry story. That was one of the big stories of the past 5 years for the Eagles.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
It's no Ayedje.
Compared to Alexander.
Anything else you wanted to add on the all the turnover, Deniz, before we were waylaid by the captains?
No, it's just, I mean, I mainly agree with what you said about not only are the replacements high variance, but also the roles that they're going to be in, right? Like, so Fletcher Cox is being replaced by nobody, right? So it's just like everyone else just stepping up. And we've never seen them in a role where they're playing that many snaps. Okay, fine. But you know what I mean? Like the starters don't include a new player. And then Jason Kelce is being replaced by the guy who played right guard last year, who, by the way, wasn't very good after he got injured. And then the right guard is being replaced by a guy who's never played right guard in his life, right? Like, so you just have a lot of people in roles that they haven't been in before. And so I think it justifies the fact that we just don't know what's going to happen.
All right. Well,
but I agree with CJ GJ is a big upgrade over Terrell Edmonds and Justin Evans.
Yeah, but what a 4 games that was from Justin Evans before his IR just never ended, which the Eagles were surprised by. All right, before we get to the rest of the show, let's tell you about some more of our friends, including the Bet Parks Casino, where they've got all kinds of fun events coming up. You've got JB Smoove from Curb Your Enthusiasm on September 14th. I know you're a big JB Smoove guy, ZB. You've also got The Best of the Eagles, which is an Eagles tribute band, not the Philadelphia Eagles, but the band on September 20th. You got Joe Bartnick from the Bill Burr podcast joining Joe Conklin. You got The Fray. You got comedian Michael Blaustein and Kev Herrera and Steve Trevino. No relation to Lee, I imagine. So all kinds of events at the Bet Parks Casino. Parks Casino, this is how you win. ParksCasino.com to buy tickets for all shows. You must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Let me tell everyone about Ace Hardware Home Services, because you might be, behind Professor Selman right now. There's a lot of construction going on. When those people move in, they're going to need some Ace Hardware Home Services. You might have a leaky pipe. Well, they're around the block with everything you need, including the person to do the fixing. If there's an air conditioning issue, Ace Hardware Home Services has a person for that. Got a faucet that you say you'd fix last fall? I got to tell you, I don't know how to fix a faucet. So I need a person for that. And I get that at Ace Hardware, because now we're not just helpful hardware folks. We're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, we've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, we're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love, from a store now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project.
Twitter message, Zach, from Corey Zinho, one of our fans from Brazil, who says he wants to know if I can give out your phone number so the fans in Brazil can check in on you. They need to make sure that you're not waving your phone around on the sidewalk like a madman.
Oh, I won't be waving my phone around on the sidewalk like a madman. I've been getting a lot of text the last 24 hours with different. I'm curious. Professor Selman's an international traveler, so are you, Bo? I mean, I've been getting a lot of texts with different opinions on Brazil right now. I think AJ Brown got a lot of people thinking about this and discussing this.
That's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous, and it happens.
I got a clip today.
Everyone who goes to Brazil,
please listen to AJ Brown.
We went to Brazil in 2013, I think it was, and everyone said, like, don't wear your wedding ring, like, don't wear, like, don't carry thing, whatever. When we were walking around Rio, and I thought it was ridiculous, just completely ridiculous, and I wore my ring and everything, and I was fine. I think like the aggregate crime numbers in cities are often like misconstrued to think that like the odds that something happens to you as a random person walking around is high. Like, I didn't know anybody drug money, and so no one was going to come after me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that's usually how crime works. It's not random, and so this really annoys me. Like when people say the same thing about Philly.
This otherism of like, like you don't know what they're crazy down there. You don't know what they're gonna do. Like, come on.
And it's exactly like when you travel anywhere. It's like the first day you get there, people tell you all kinds of things. This, don't do that. Don't touch this. Like, don't look at the water. Like, don't, whatever. And then after like 2 days, you just get used to it and you're fine. Like that's what traveling is. And so ridiculous. Like nothing's gonna happen to your phone, Zach. It'll be fine.
Yeah, don't like hold $100 bill out and like let it hang out of the back of your pocket. Like,
I don't carry cash.
Sense.
I don't carry cash around. But I probably will need some the local currency. But yeah, I mean, I got to admit, I've been doing research on these Brazilian steakhouses, these Brazilian coffee shops. And what's the cocktail? The Bo, can you give me the correct pronunciation?
No, I want to hear you say it.
I know what it has: sugar cane in it, and it has lime in it. I heard Baldy.
We all know what it has in it. Say
it. I'm gonna work on the pronunciation, but yeah, I mean, I always, whenever I travel, I want to like immerse myself. I don't want to overstate it. Like I want to learn the culture. I don't want to eat in the hotel. Like I want to see what's out there. But I also I'm trying to not be.
Wait, so who are the people? Who are the people in your life that are telling you like, be careful, don't leave the hotel room?
I mean, I don't want to name names here, but the
AJ
AJ Brown clip went viral, and there's someone who said to my brother recently, like, "Oh, I wouldn't go there if I was ZB," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Very much looking forward to this."
Yeah.
If you buy any drugs, Zach, pay for the drugs, okay? Then you'll be fine. As long as you don't know anybody. But seriously, like it's the amount of random crime is just so overstated that it really.
Now, obviously,
it's not. It's like a combination.
It's really going to come back to bite us if Zach gets in an accident or something like that. We don't want that.
Let's not joke about that. Yeah, let's not. Can you imagine? Like, I'm not gonna. I don't want to speak this to fruition. I'm doing a live hit outside for like the Anthony Gargano show or for the PHLY Eagles show. So like I'm there holding my phone doing the live hit.
Somebody grabs it.
Someone comes by and swipes it. They don't realize that I'm on. So now you're.
It would be
going
the best moment in the history of our channel. It would probably make us go viral. PHLY would go to the moon.
So this person's running around,
especially if it kept airing for a while after.
Yeah, it's goodness. But no, I will be smart about it. But I do want to have, Brazil. I do want to have a Brazilian steakhouse. I actually saw a stat recently that fascinated me too. That is that São Paulo has the highest population of Japanese citizens or outside of Japan. So they said like the sushi there is really good as well. So curious about that. A huge Italian
restaurants in São Paulo.
Huge Italian population, so they've good Italian. I mean, I only have 2 meals there outside of NFL stuff, so I can't do everything. But yeah, I do want to get a good meal in, and I'm not a coffee guy, but I hear the coffee down there is really good. Although, as Baldy said on the show the other day, if you just have sugarcane liquid, is this a thing? Like I don't know if you pulverize the sugarcane, whatever it is, but he says that's better than any type of coffee. That will get you going. So,
oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I'm gonna find.
I would say
sugarcane.
don't be wedded to the steakhouse necessarily. If it's not,
Why do you say that? That's what they're known for.
Yeah, but I think it's like it's a little bit overstated. I think,
Really interesting. Your thoughts?
If you're able to go to like a local one,
yeah, exactly. Don't go to like
that would be great, But
I was gonna go to Fogo at the Shell.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
don't do that. Also, I mean, don't go to one that you see on like a list that tourists look at. You know what I mean? Like, there are ways to find. We can talk off there about this, but there are ways to find the local places.
Yeah. Also, I've tried to learn some Portuguese pronunciation, so trying to speak the local language a bit.
Yeah, what do you got? What have you been working on?
Nothing I'm ready yet. Maybe on the show on Wednesday when I'm in Brazil, I'll be in the spirit and I'll give you some Eagles insight in Portuguese.
Okay, there you go. All right, let's talk a little schedule, Deniz, as a refresher. We had a couple of comments earlier this week about how is the schedule lining up, and I think we could use a refresher here because we haven't spent a ton of time on it, especially over the course of training camp. Generally speaking, fair to say, Professor, that this is a much more forgiving schedule than last season.
For sure. Looks way more like the 2022 schedule in terms of the strength of schedule than the 2023 schedule. I tweeted out a chart when the schedule came out with the difficulty based on Super Bowl odds of the opponents, and the Eagles had the 27th most difficult schedule, so the 6th easiest. And I should retweet that. I'll retweet that later today. And then looking at the other NFC contenders, looking at the top 4 NFC contenders other than the Eagles, they're all middle of the road, middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule. Green Bay has the 13th most difficult, San Francisco 15th, Detroit 16th, Dallas 17th. So basically they're all very average schedules where the average ranking of the team that they're playing is around 16th or so. Whereas the Eagles' average ranking is 18th, and there are only 2 games on the entire schedule for the Eagles against teams in the top 8 in Super Bowl odds, and those are the Bengals and the Ravens. You can compare that with last year when the Eagles had 6 games against teams in the top 8, and 5 of them famously were all in a row. So, there's nothing even close to the gauntlet like that. This year, there was only 1 game against the team in the top 8 in 2022. That was Green Bay, interestingly. And this year, again, there are only 2. So it's a far more forgiving schedule for sure. It's weirdly weighted in terms of home and away. There are only 4 home games, 4 actual home games, like in Philadelphia, in the first 13 weeks, which is crazy. There are 4 games out of 5 at the end at home. So we can get to that last stretch with a good record and being in contention and all that. We're going to get to go to some very important games like all in a row here at home. But until then, unless you're traveling to the away games, there's we're going to be watching a lot of games on TV.
It's interesting because I think that this is probably overstated and it never actually turns out this way, but it does kind of feel like just given all the turnover this offseason and especially the Sirianni Hurts noise that they could use getting off to a good start. It would probably be good for everybody's blood pressure if they weren't having to do the planting flowers and hoping that it sprouts at the end of the season, and they need to win 4 out of 5 to make the playoffs or something like that. Right. They sort of need to take advantage of the first half of the schedule.
You're saying if the team starts, say, 10-1, things can't possibly go wrong after that.
No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if they're starting, 3-7, then I don't know how much longer the locker rooms stand together.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just so weird how these last 2 years now the Eagles have been 10-1 both years, right? Is that right? It's just that's probably not going to happen again because that doesn't normally happen. And we're all going to have to kind of get used to a normal season where the team isn't just at the top of the standings. So there's going to be a little bit of adversity. Odds are for the first time since Sirianni's first season, when the start wasn't that good, and then they were able to recover. So.
Last thing that you wanted to talk about, Professor, was just your thoughts on Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio so far.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about the way the roster and the coordinators go together, and I don't know if this is by design or just the way it worked out, but Vic Fangio seems to be the perfect coordinator to maximize the probability of competence, right? Which is exactly what this roster kind of needs, with all the question marks and some of the missing pieces, the lack of huge stars on defense, that kind of thing. Fangio seems perfect for that. And then, coming off of a year when the defense was literally the worst in the league in the second half of the season, to bring it back up to competence, Fangio is probably the perfect guy. And then I was thinking that Kellen Moore, and this is an optimistic view, so I was pessimistic about the roster quality overall, but I'm very optimistic about the coaches. Kellen Moore seems to just bring a set of regular, normal, professional, modern NFL tools to an incredibly talented offensive roster that I think is just going to be potentially an excellent fit. Last year on the show after week 15, I came on and we had a show where we talked about how the Eagles are dead last in motion, dead last in under center, all those things. And one of the things that
avoiding all extremes, all this stuff, yes.
Exactly. And then there's 32nd in 7 different categories. And they're all things that are very much things that other teams have increased in the modern game, right? Which makes it seem like Sirianni's stuck in some sort of strange past. The one thing that I talked about on that show was the percentage of yards of the top 6 players in the NFL in receiving yards, the percentage of those yards that they got when they were in motion. And the reason I was mentioning it last year is because A.J. Brown was one of those 6 players, and 16 of his 1,300 yards had come in motion, so 1%. And then everyone else was above 15%. The player who was the highest was Keenan Allen, who, of course, was being coordinated by Kellen Moore. And Keenan Allen was 4th in the league in receiving yards. 36% of his 1,200 yards had come when he was the player in motion. That 36% is the highest by far of any of the players on this list. I think that's a really good sign for Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith last year, 5% of his yards came when he was in motion. I expect that number to be closer to 25 this year. I just think that the way that he's going to use Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, but especially Devonta Smith, with how good he is in the slot, with how good he is in different parts of the formation, just how fluid he looks when he is in motion, I think that's going to be a great fit, and I'm very excited about that. Also, the under center play action and all the other stuff that we just didn't see at all. Just even having that sprinkled in, I think is going to be really nice. So I'm excited.
The Devonta Smith thing is particularly interesting to me. I was looking at these numbers earlier today, actually, and we know that he's so good from the slot, right? And maybe they don't take enough advantage of that. To back that up, over the past 2 seasons, he is 7th in the entire NFL in yards per route run from the slot, and we're the company there is Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Nico Collins, Amari Cooper. Those are the guys who are ahead of him. Of the top 10 guys on that list, Devonta is the only one who is below average related to the rest of the league in yards per route run from the outside, right? And that doesn't quite track with my eyes, right? I think that Devonta is still fine on the outside, but he's got the biggest difference there from the inside and the outside. And in terms of slot percentage, they went last year, they bumped him very slightly from 21% to 24%. So he's still around 23%. And then you think about Kellen Moore with CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee Lamb is playing over 50% of his snaps from the inside. And just anecdotally, this summer, I feel like Devonta, a lot of his big plays have come in the slot. And so the Jahan Dotson mix is a little bit interesting because size-wise, he might be typecast as a slot guy, but he's not necessarily better there than on the outside. I think the offense is best served if Dotson is more on the outside in 11 personnel, and Devonta is the guy who is who was sort of crushing it in the middle. And interestingly, of AJ Brown, not super effective when he is in the slot. So to me, that is their best mix.
Yeah, the combination that they went with the most last year when lining up just 2x2, which we all know the Eagles led the league in 2x2 formations last year, which is the most vanilla way you can line up, was AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert on one side with AJ on the outside, and then Devonta Smith would be with the other player, whether it be another tight end or a wide receiver on the other side. It'll be interesting to see how much that changes this year. You know what I mean? And also motion obviously changes everything. Like motion makes it so that it doesn't really matter how you're initially lined up. And so, it's going to be really interesting. Devonta Smith is so good at those option routes from the slot. How will he do when he's, paired with somebody else or running different route combinations and not as predictable as last year's offense got by the end? It'll be exciting. I didn't know about the below average from the outside for Devonta Smith. That's a little surprising, though. When you do routes run, that's very negatively affected by having a high volume receiver on the other side, right? So like a lot of times he's running a route, but the ball's going to AJ. If AJ wasn't on the team, like his number would be a lot higher.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's exactly right. It's probably weighted down by AJ Brown's volume, but the other guys around him, he's in my mind a much better player than everybody else in that area. So at least a little bit interesting. Right. Zach, everything okay on your end? Do you need to say goodbye? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm enjoying the conversation. No, sorry. First off, I'm enjoying the conversation. I apologize for the internet. I can assure you this is the last time this season this will be happening like this. I'll have
embrace technology, baby.
When I'm at home.
Don't apologize for the internet. I mean, the internet
definitely
does stink now. Like Google blows. Everything is like, oh, we got the mass audience and consumer base that we need. Let's make it worse now, and everything sucks.
Yeah,
fascinating article on Google this summer in the Guardian long read about basically what Bo's talking about that I recommend. If you DuckDuckGo like Guardian Google, you'll find the story.
I see what you did there. I am curious, Professor Selman, about when you speak about the schedule. We had the the draft yesterday. The over-unders. What's the official name of it? What's the official name of the over-unders?
Oh, the spread your wins. Oh my goodness! What on earth? First of all,
yes.
Fran knows he's allowed to criticize NFL teams now, right? In this I mean, he had every team over, like in the whole league. Like if he could have picked your guys' games, he would have picked them over too.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. So
we got to get Fran used to being able to say bad things about teams. Also, the last 16 picks in the draft were all overs. 16 in a row, overs by the three of you combined. I tweeted it just before the show. If you want to go on and look at that.
Oh, I saw. Actually, Bo had
when one team wins a game in the NFL, the other team loses it. Just so you know, just the way it works. Like everyone can't be over. So.
Yeah, Bo kind of characterized it yesterday as if this is a game that he does great in. He's won it once in 4 years.
No. I didn't say I'm great at it. I said I have won it in the past, and you objected to that. And I knew that I won the year that I was actually prepared to follow the entire league. Entire rankings. I went into it and I won that year. So that is the one. But yes, you have won it more often. You're the only one who has won it twice.
Yes. I am curious, Professor Selman, what you think of the NFC East.
Shield, Zach, Bo, Zach is the order of champions in Spreader Wins.
I'm curious what you think of the NFC East this year, because that a big part of how the Eagles' schedule will turn out will be on how those three teams fare. And we were all kind of bearish on the Giants yesterday. The Cowboys, I think Bo was kind of in on them, then wasn't in on them. I wasn't quite sure. And then the Commanders, I didn't know which way to go there. But what's your view of the NFC East?
I'll be honest. The way that I follow other teams is very very, very concentrated on the weeks that the Eagles play them. So I haven't been following like every little detailed move by every team as much as others, but it's impossible not to follow some of the headlines about Dallas and the things, the quarterback says he doesn't care what the owner says, and their inability to sign their stars in time and things like that. We all know all that stuff. I don't know. I mean, Dallas is always a little bit better than I think they're going to be. It's always a little bit annoying. They've won more games than anyone else in the league the last 3 years combined. Is that right? In the regular season, they just seem to have a good regular season record. But I mean, I don't know. This is me every year, but I just don't. I think the Eagles are better, and I think the Vegas odds on who's going to win the division are correct. And the other two teams.
Yeah, I saw a quote from Mike McCarthy. I saw a quote from Mike McCarthy where everyone's talking about playoff wins, but people take for granted winning 12 wins every year, or I'm sorry, winning 12 games every year, or something of that nature. And I was like, that is not
and they have. I mean, they've won.
You send to your fan base,
right?
Yeah.
Of course, no. I mean, they're not good at sending messages to their fan base by any means, but they have won 36 games in the last 3 years, which I think is the most of any team. For what that's worth, I mean, I don't know, but then the other two teams are terrible. You just have to, not lose to them, right? Like that's the key. Like when you have all those games, and the Eagles have a very second half heavy division schedule. There's only one division game in the first 8 games, I believe, right? Yes. And that's against the Giants in week 7, and then a very division heavy schedule at the end. And those games against Washington and Dallas in the second half, they're all kind of back to back, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying anything other than what most people think here is that those two teams are not going to be very good, and just have to not trip up against them.
All right, Deniz, yeah, great. Don't give us the top highlight from Thailand and the top highlight from Norway.
Oh man, in Thailand, I'll go with Evren's top highlight because it was the most interesting. We stayed in these overwater bungalows in Khao Sok National Park. So they dammed this river in 1982, and it turned into this massive lake. And the mountains around this lake are amazing. If anyone's been to or seen like Halong Bay in Vietnam, like where just have these like crazy, kind of narrowly, like steeply like rising mountains that are super dramatic. Imagine that, but with a lake that you can swim in at all times, and staying on like a floating bungalow for 3 nights. So we did that. You could kayak from there. We saw wild elephants on the land, like when we were there. There were gibbons, like other monkeys. So that was awesome. That was probably the coolest thing we did in Thailand. And that was everyone's favorite thing as well. I personally liked the north a lot, Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. I highly recommend anyone who goes to Thailand to go to the north and maybe spend more time in the north than anywhere else. Fewer tourists, better food, cheaper, slightly better weather. I thought it was great. And then Norway, we did a road trip from Bergen to Ålesund. And on that road trip, there's this place called Low End that has this sky train, basically like just a big ski lift, basically. And at the top of that, we did a hike, which was one of the most beautiful hikes I've ever done. So we got to walk on snow in August, which is fun. And it gets dark at like 11 p.m., which is my style.
Up your alley.
Yeah, totally. It was great. And Evren made a great point that he can't go to bed while it's still light out, right? And so he was able to convince us that midnight was a reasonable bedtime. So.
Good for Evren. Fantastic. All right, good stuff, Professor. Thank you for joining us. Good to have you back. I think fair to say we'll see you pretty much all season.
Yeah, great to be back. Looking forward to it, and I hope the Eagles win some games this year when I'm on the show, so that
if they
don't
start
badly
this year, then
stoned
we really
on the street.
I think you may have to reconsider, but we will still want to have you. So exciting stuff. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. We are back on Tuesday at 2:00, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even Friday next week. We'll have a 2:00 show before our kickoff show, but there will also be coverage on allphly.com. The Eagles return to practice on Sunday. Zach will have you covered on that. And we've also got some exciting stuff coming out in the middle of next week as we all prepare for the season opener just 1 week away. And Zach is getting ready for some caipirinhas.
Caipirinhas. There it is. Caipirinhas. Yes.
Yeah, again, once you hear it, you say it worse.
Caipirinhas. Give me the drink with the sugar cane and the lime. Okay, how about that?
There you go.
And Brazilian steak. Yeah, I'll keep the card green. You're not supposed to show green, but I'll keep the card up green, right?
Yeah, this is the tourist trap stuff that you're falling for. That's okay. That'll do it for the PHLY Eagles podcast. We thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.